Welcome back. All right, so I want to talk about logos today because the question gets asked every now and then in the live stream, which logo did he prefer, this. So we'll take a look at it. And we're going through logos that have been primaries. So just primaries. And then I had some fun with it as well, getting into teams that have relocated, teams that are in the same location as previous franchises, all that fun stuff. There are certain ones I don't have magnets for. Obviously, that's something that I would like to remedy at some point, including an Atlanta Flames magnet. Thank you very much, but it's not a thing. I've looked. So we'll go through this, teams in order from Anaheim through Winnipeg. Starting with Anaheim, they had the Mighty Ducks logo. They have the current Web D logo, which I like because after the Mighty Ducks and they just had the word mark, there really wasn't an identity with that, but they won a cup. So maybe not having an identity worked. But for me, the better of the two is definitely the Mighty Ducks logo. Yes, I think all the speculation that eventually they go back to some form of that logo, probably on an orange triangle rather than the greenish one they've got there, sort of a darker teal. I think they'll lead into the orange because orange has kind of become their primary color. Even though I know their primary color in their jerseys is black, the orange third tells me that at some point we're going to be looking at an orange Mighty Ducks sort of level. And I don't think they end up changing the team name back. They'll just stay the Anaheim Ducks and use that logo. For Arizona, I do like this logo. I do like the yawning or howling coyote, and to me, it more looks yawning. But the original logo does have a certain amount of flair and appeal, and people have grown to like it. Keep in mind, people hated it when it was initially revealed. It was a reviled logo around the NHL, and then all of a sudden people started liking it. So if you really can't stand a logo right now, give it 10 years, you might like it later. Boston has been remarkably consistent. There are some older ones that I have magnets for, but I thought, nah, we'll just go with these two because you have the one they had in the 80s, the one they have currently. I do like their current one. I think it's a cleaner logo. I think it's a cleaner logo. I think it looks nicer. It's more defined than this one, and I think it's a nice. I think that's the nicest one they've had. I think Boston, their whole jersey, their look now is an amalgamation of various old logos and old looks, and I think they look fantastic now. Buffalo, of course, they've changed the colors from what this was to their current colors, which are a different blue and a different gold, but it's still this logo. The buffalo head, or as we called it in the day, the goat head, and it's still referred to as goat head by a great number of people because people thought it was an angry goat more than a buffalo. I do prefer their current / original logo over that goat head. I think that's fine for a third. I think that the rebrand doesn't work. I do not have a magnet for the Buffaslug. The Buffaslug would not win this contest. If you think the Buffaslug's the best of the Buffalo logos, you probably not on an island by yourself, but close. For Calgary, really their logo hasn't changed over time. Again, I wish I had an Atlanta magnet to throw on the board, but it didn't used to have black, and then they added the black. I actually kind of prefer it without the black. I do prefer the logo they've gone back to, the jerseys they've gone back to. I think it looks better. It's a preference on my part. It felt like in the 90s every team added black. Even Chicago suddenly had a black jersey. Everybody's got to have a black jersey. Everybody's got to add black to whatever they're doing. Even Philly had the black jersey for a while, even with the black logo. But, it all looked fine. But for Calgary, I would go with the one that's red, gold, and white. That's their colors. For Carolina, it's not fair, right? Carolina's had the one primary their whole time. I think at some point in time, the double storm flag, the hurricane flag, will become their main logo. I think if you did the double flag as the home and the away, you had a white version of that, I think that would be a hot big seller. That being said, the Hartford Whalers logo is still all-time probably my favorite logo. The H that takes up that negative space. On the green jerseys, it was harder to make out that H, so in the 90s, they colored that gray, and it made it a lot easier to see, oh, that's an H in the negative space, and the W underneath, and you've got the whale tail on the top. It's a very nice logo. Not looking corporate, still looking hockey, and that's that fine line that I think sometimes teams may have a problem with. Chicago, by default, that's their current logo, and it is their best one. Their previous logos did not look as sharp as that one. I think that's their best one. They've changed the colors of the feathers. They've made changes to the face. It has changed over the years, but the one that it is currently is still, I think, their best. Colorado's up against it, right? Colorado against the original Nordiques logo. What's interesting with the Nordiques logo is it's an igloo. You've got a hockey stick and you've got a puck. Here, you've still got a puck. You've got the A. You've got the simulated avalanche of that puck coming down. But again, for me, because of just that warm feeling you get looking at that Nordiques logo, the Nordiques logo wins for me. Although from a design perspective, the Avalanche one is, I think, much better. This one here, you can tell, though, is hockey, because hockey stick and a puck. But this one could be confused with other corporate kind of looking logos, if not for that little puck there and what. But anyways, yeah, it's funny because I remember as a kid looking at that one and thinking, why? But it works. All these years later, it works. Columbus, notice the cannon's not up there because they haven't been of the mind to make the cannon the main logo. The cannon, absolutely, it's their identity. It's really their identity. You can throw this on the shoulder, but this was an upgrade over this. So in terms of logos, I'm going to go with the current one. And it's interesting to see how many I've gone with either the old that's new again, and this is going to happen, as opposed to the one they changed to, showing that very often you get it right the first time. Dallas, this is the logo, of course, they inherited from the Minnesota North Stars. Does not look like a Minnesota North Stars logo, and that was the thought process at the time, was that this logo changed in part because they knew they were going to move the team. Whether that's true or not, that was the talk at the time. This logo is sharp. This is one that I know people don't necessarily like as much. When they were talking about rebranding, I got nervous because I didn't like the college-style jerseys with the word mark on the front that they'd been wearing prior to that. But this, I thought, was an upgrade on the jersey, but for logo, I'm going to go with the old one there as well. Those old Star jerseys are iconic. The Stars logo, as it was back then, just fantastic. One of my favorites of all time. Detroit doesn't really change their logo. There's been changes of color. There's been changes of the shape of the Red Wings logo. But their current logo is their best. It is much like Chicago, that they've just had a small evolution here and there, and all of the original 6 teams have. None of them use exactly the same logo that they did back in the day, but it's close enough that it's still iconic and it's fantastic. The Oilers have never changed their primary. They've changed their colors here and there, but again, for the Oilers, it's a look that works. It is something that I don't think ever changes. I think that's the Oilers logo forever. Florida, they had the jumping cat, which when you get into drawability, and I know that's not something that's major for people, but I think on some level, having a simple logo can be better. So they changed it to a logo that looks very military-ish or corporate-ish, and it's a very military setup to the jerseys at this point, but I do prefer the old logo. I do. Now, the current logo has grown on me, and I'm fine with them keeping that for however long they want, which is great, because they don't care what my opinion would be on that. But I do prefer the old logo. Now we get into the tough ones. The LA Kings, a team that's had some identity crises along the way. So, the crown, this one here from the 80s with Los Angeles Kings and the crown underneath. Then they switched over to this one during the Gretzky era, right? Then you get the coat of arms, which I love, but if you're getting into drawability, this one, your hand will cramp up. And then the simple crown, which I really liked. And then this one, their current one, LA, with the crown underneath. Of all of the logos they've had, I'm going to go with the crown. Now, what's interesting is that for the jerseys, I love the coat of arms. But as a primary logo, this, I think, beats this out. Just barely. I think as a primary logo, this one here, it's nice. It's relatively simple. It isn't completely dissimilar to this, and I think this looks cleaner than that one. So again, that's me. I think if you did this one in purple and gold, and you put a purple jersey out there with that on the front, I think you'd have a winner. But again, that's just me. Minnesota, of course, the Wild have never changed their logo, so I thought, why not put up North Stars? I think if eventually this logo has these colors, great. As a logo, I think the Minnesota Wild have the better logo. I think it's a fantastic logo. Yes, it's very easy to draw a Minnesota North Stars logo, and it was one of the ones I used to do all the time because it was easy. That being said, the current Minnesota Wild logo is fantastic. So the North Stars one is nice, and it's nice to see, and I wouldn't mind seeing a throwback of them actually wearing North Stars. So they wear North Stars colors with the reverse retros. I wouldn't mind seeing a Minnesota North Stars throwback. The Dallas Stars aren't going to care. I can't see them caring at all. So I wouldn't mind seeing a throwback, but the Minnesota Wild logo is fantastic. And this is what I'm talking about the small evolution. So this is your old Montreal logo. This is your current one. Very, very little difference. This one is the nicer one of the two. Their current logo is the nicest form the logo's had over a century that they've got in the National Hockey League. So I would go with that one. Nashville, very minor change between the two. This being your original look for them, where they've got the silver and the blue, sort of a bluish color in there too. I prefer the current logo. I think it's a cleaner looking logo than the original. And I think the teeth are a little bit smaller on the current logo than on the original. I don't know. It still looks like it'd be really painful if that thing bit down. So it kind of has to permanently be, which still terrifying, but comically terrifying. Be laughing while it was murdering you. So yeah, that's it for Nashville. Then you get to New Jersey. Originally red and green. They changed to red and black. That is a very iconic logo. The red and black's fantastic. I didn't mind the red and green, but the red and black just worked better. And when they switched to that, it was just, okay, that's their colors now. The New York Islanders, of course, have the logo they had when they came out. The Fisherman was a thing. It was their primary logo for 1 year. Immediately, they moved away from that due to the backlash. And again, it's proof that as time goes by, we change our minds. You know, people love the Captain Highliner jerseys now. Bring back the fish. Why won't they bring back the Fisherman? Stupid Lou Lamoriello. And then he brings it back. People are like, well, that's not as dumb as it looked in the 90s. I don't want to buy that. I want it to look as dumb as it did in the 90s. I think it looks better now. But it's still, their old logo is iconic. You keep that. New York Rangers, like the other original 6 teams, there have been changes over the years of the Rangers logo. Very, very minor changes. Coloring changes. Font changes for the lettering in it. I think currently it has the best look it's had. Ottawa, this, of course, originally, there was red for these here. That's their current logo as well. The 3D logo, and I know people don't like the 3D logo, so just completely ignore the fact that I put the check mark next to the 3D logo. I just like it better. I know. Yes, right. Nobody else does. I'm aware. Philadelphia's never changed their logo. So there's not much to talk about with Philly, but I've always liked their logo. I think it's iconic as well. I think that it does a really good job. When the original 6 was joined by 6 brand new teams, I think Philadelphia hit it out of the park, getting a logo that did not look out of place with the original 6. The Seals, not as much. But yes, Philadelphia did well. I think the Kings did all right, and I think the Penguins did pretty well too. So the Penguins, of course, over the years, they've had changes. These are the 3 logos that I have, and I think they're the 3 logos that are pertinent to this video. I don't think there's very many people that would want the old logo, which was this penguin in the circle with Pittsburgh Penguins written around it. This logo, of course, became this logo, which was controversial at the time. This logo has become beloved in retrospect. It eventually became this one, which is a true gold color. This one's more of a bright yellow than the other. Of course, marigold on their jerseys. This one's actually, it's a gold penguin. And I understand that most Penguin fans don't like that one, but I do. I personally preferred the gold. Now the jerseys, no, the jerseys were terrible, but the colors I thought were nice. And I think it's a shame that they didn't try the striping they have on their current jerseys with that gold penguin. So maybe at some point they do some kind of a throwback where they do that. I think it'll look really sharp. But for their jerseys, yes, the current jerseys are the nicest. The Robo Penguin, it's fun to look back on and all that, but I don't think it ever becomes their primary logo again. The Sharks, their original logo, their current logo, the difference being to me, this one looks more realistic, less cartoony. I think this one is a cleaner design than that one. And so I'm going to give the check mark to their current San Jose logo. I think that one's fantastic. And I like the change of the jerseys for this year. I think they did well. I know there's a lot of people that don't like them, but hey, opinions are different. Seattle just has, of course, their current logo. I think they've done a nice job with theirs. I know there are people that wanted more of a Cthulhu-like look to it. I've got 3 different Cthulhu jerseys, so I'm all set in case I ever go to Seattle. But really, Seattle, I think their logo's fine. And if I was ranking the 32 logos around the NHL, I think they would end up probably right around the middle. They wouldn't be top 10, but they wouldn't be in the bottom 10 for me either. St. Louis has had minor changes over the years. Basically, it's been this logo. It did become this. There was also the word mark over top for like 2 years. They had the word mark over the top. This one has red in it, which was confusing at the time. Still is when there's red in a St. Louis Blues jersey. Although the red Blues reverse retro I did like. But between the two, the current / classic look is the best one. So again, the blue note has changed in shape from where it was originally to how it looked in the 80s to how it looks now. I think the current look now is the best one that they've had. Tampa Bay, we get into a bit more of a debate. This is a team that's got 4 different primaries here. So you have the original, which has got a lot of love recently, of course, with their 2 reverse retros, both throwing that one on the front. You have this one in between, which is kind of the forgotten one of their logos, because eventually it would change to this logo with the word mark over the top, and then they remove the word mark. Of the 4 logos, the first one's, the most recent one is the cleanest. It's the one that it doesn't need a word mark. The word marks over the lightning bolt are odd. I did like this one a lot though, but this one, it's funny. When it came out, it looked kind of boring. I remember Ottawa, it felt like had a better logo than Tampa, but as the years go by, that's the one that people are seem to be drawn to, is that original Tampa Bay logo. Toronto's isn't even close. So currently they have a logo which harkens back to the old logos, which is why their most recent reverse retro confused people because it looked so much like their current jersey. That's by design. This logo here, I don't think will ever grace a Toronto jersey again in full. I don't think this will end up on the front of one. I think that this logo here is so far superior to that one. And yet it's weird because they're not that different. But this was the one that when I was a kid, I thought was the most boring logo in the National Hockey League. I didn't, and I mean, even though it's relatively easy to draw, I wasn't a fan. I just didn't like it. I actually thought their jerseys were kind of boring too. And yeah, the current ones I think are fantastic. I think they've got very nice jerseys, and I think the logo is awesome. So there's that. Vancouver, a team that has gone through its share of changes in jerseys, but the primary logo hasn't changed that much. So originally you have the stick and rink, which people do like, although I hear fewer calls to go back to the stick and rink than I did, say, 20 years ago. Maybe because the modernized stick and rink's been on the shoulder, right? The skate, which everybody seems to love, and then they switched to the Orca, which became the Orca with the word mark, and then this Orca. So the original Orca is not up here because this Orca is so similar to the other one. I thought, I'll put the current Orca. Honestly, if we're talking about which logo is best, I know this one gets all of the love from all of the Canuck fans, but in terms of my favorite logo of the Canucks, I'm going with the current. Yep, I'm going with the Orca. And I know that at the time they switched to the Orca, they were owned by Orca Bay. So there was a lot of discussion about whether or not that was right. But in the end, I thought it was okay. It didn't bother me nearly as much. And so, yeah, I think that the Orca is the nicest of their logos. I love these jerseys. I do. And I get that same feeling, when I see them wearing them out on the ice. And it's great to have those throwback nights. But as a permanent look, I don't think that the skate jerseys are going to come back. Vegas has just had the one logo. Vegas has done a good job out of the gate too. And I think there's something to be said for that original logo that a team goes with usually being a pretty good call. Vegas's is excellent. It is. I don't think it's one that's ever going to change. There'll likely be other changes where it comes to like secondaries. I could see that being changed at some point. Other new logos coming out as well. Because it's Vegas, they're always going to want something new. They don't just knock down hotels every few years because it's fun, although I'm sure it is. It's because for Vegas, you're always renewing. You've always got to be at the top. And I get the feeling that as an owner, Bill Foley wants them to be at or near the top when it comes to merchandise sales. So if the merchandise sales drop off, maybe you do see a rebrand. Wouldn't be surprised because it's Vegas, right? Washington, they've gone through their share of changes over the years. The Weagle's not up here, which is their current secondary logo, because it's the secondary. Even though it's used a lot for a lot of material, I consider that to be the secondary, this being their primary. So the original logo looks a lot like their current logo. That is, of course, by design. This is a modernized, updated version of this one. You've got the eagle in the middle, and I'm going to go with the eagle in the middle. And if they would make that current secondary logo their main logo, I would be voting for that one. I think that's a fantastic logo, but technically this is their main logo, the word mark of Washington Capitals, which is kind of a little boring, sure, just a little bit. But again, as a kid, it's easy enough to just write Washington Capitals and make the L a stick. Done. All right, well, that logo was... Let's move on to something else, shall we? But anyways, yeah, I would go with that eagle in the middle, personally. Winnipeg, of course, when they came into the NHL, we had this logo here. It would eventually change to this logo, which is on their new reverse retros, which looks fantastic. The Thrashers are here because without the Thrashers, you don't get the current Winnipeg Jets. The Thrashers didn't have a building due to some ineptness on their part, not due to the fans. And I always say this, Atlanta definitely has hockey fans. Sadly, the first team they didn't show up for, which was Atlanta, moved to Calgary. The Thrashers, they showed up for in enough numbers to keep the team. They couldn't keep the building because the ownership was inept. But we get this logo instead. Now, I've never been a huge fan of this logo for Winnipeg, which fans of the channel know. And if I'm naming off my favorite logo, it is that 90s logo for the Jets. I was so impressed with this when they changed to it. I thought, that's a really nice look. It's close enough to the other logo and to the other design that the jerseys, you could still tell it was Jets. It wasn't a complete rebrand. But I thought they looked nicer. I thought they were cleaner. And so, yeah, that would be my pick. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. And at some point as well, I'm going to grade the other logos that aren't on the board. So I'm going to go through my magnets and get logos that were never primaries and grade them. And say, all right, these are the ones, this is the order I'd put them in, that kind of thing. And so, yeah, looking forward to that. But I thought, hey, why not do this today? It's a Friday. Games don't start till 5. Why not? So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. And yes, I'm wearing a Kansas City Scouts jersey because for New Jersey, technically, I could have had the Rockies. I could have had the Scouts. But I thought, nah, I'll leave it as just New Jersey and grade between those two. And on the other side, spoiler alert, this logo and the Colorado Rockies logo, there's no way they would have unseated the New Jersey Devils, who have a very sharp logo in the National Hockey League. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.